The road was full of potholes and uneven. Iron cages containing slaves were piled up on both sides of the road. A slave trader carried a bucket covered in grease and spooned scoops of sticky food into an iron cage. This was the original order of the orcs, the strong rule, and the losers are relegated to the lowest rungs of society as slaves. As you walk along the dirt road and get closer to the city, the road under your feet turns into blue brick and stone slabs, making it much easier to walk. Kinriva City, where the city wall stands tall. It looks like it should be level 11 or 12. On the city wall, you can see guards in various gear patrolling and maintaining order. Ma Tianyi sat upright on horseback, walking at the front of the procession. This city's main source of income is the slave trade. They have their own army to capture slaves, and the captives captured by various tribes are also sent here to be sold. On one side, riding ahead, was a warrior clad in black armor. His entire body was covered in black armor, with only a pair of cold, golden pupils visible, staring straight ahead without looking to the side. A long-handled mace hung on the side of the horse beneath him, a very obscure weapon. Asylich, the fourth son and blazing martial god. Ma Tianyi dared to come to the appointment because of the hero beside her, who had achieved Orange. Tier 10. Tier 10, that's practically a legendary hero. Has everything been arranged? Asylich asked calmly. Ma Tianyi rode closer and lowered his voice, saying, Everything is proceeding according to plan. We will go in first to meet with the Orc City Lord. My men will attack the city from outside, and we will take the Orc City Lord hostage from inside. This is the plan they came up with. Simply put, Fang Hao wants to take over this city. Ma Tianyi and Asylich, along with 100 soldiers, entered the city first to participate in negotiations with the slave owners. At that time, an attack will be launched outside the city to draw out the troops inside. Asylich means killing the city's lord, opening the city gates, and occupying the city. It's somewhat risky, but compared to the oppression of the slave traders, it's also an opportunity for Ma Tianyi and others to turn their lives around. The procession continued forward. Ma Tianyi continued. Miss Asylich, are you confident? Asylich's golden eyes glanced at him, but she didn't answer, simply walking forward silently. But the disdain in his eyes was also very obvious. Ma Tianyi gave an awkward smile and said nothing more, as expected of a high-ranking hero, so powerful and aloof. Near the city gate, he casually showed the guards the token he had left behind yesterday when he notified the negotiating orcs. The orc guards glanced at him and then led him into the city. The city was much better than the outside, but everywhere on the roads, slaves were seen being chained together and escorted to different places. Stop in front of Clan Hall. The horse was handed over to the orc standing nearby. Ma Tianyi led 2 ordinary human soldiers into the hall, while Asylich and his men waited outside. Clan Hall. It still maintains the rugged style of the orcs. The walls are decorated with animal heads, swords, and other items. In the head seat sat a tall orc hero. He was shirtless, revealing his red skin and muscular build. With its enormous mouth and fangs, and 2 yellowish teeth protruding from the corners of its mouth, it resembled a man-eating beast. His broad, hairy right hand gripped 2 iron chains. At the other end of the chain were 2 female orcs, lying on all fours like wild beasts. His eyes were filled with fear and unease. Shattered Fang slave king, Ulasak, purple tier 8 hero. The slave owner, feared by all, was the orc before them. In the eyes of a slave trader, there is no difference between humans and beasts. Those that fall into our hands and are not killed are only of some value. Those that are hard to sell and have no value are chopped up and fed to livestock after their last bit of value has been squeezed out. Sit down, you're the last one to arrive, the slave king said in a low voice. Ma Tianyi nodded and quickly sat down to the side, with the guards standing behind him. Several transmigrators were also sitting in the adjacent area. These are all leaders of nearby alliances. They exchanged a glance, their eyes filled with seriousness and unease. Who would have thought that the slave king would cause them trouble at this time? Everyone was present. The slave king winked to one side. One of the transmigrators, seated at the head of the table below, stood up with a smile and first bowed to the slave king. Then he said, "My name is Jiao Taining. I have met all the alliance leaders. I am not very strong and am currently working for the city lord of Ulasak." The group of transmigrators frowned, looking at him with somewhat strange expressions. Damn, that's what they were thinking. Why did the slave king happen to come and cause trouble for them when they had no troops? It turns out there was a traitor in transmigrators. Damn it. Everyone wore expressions of anger. Jiao Taining didn't mind and continued. We are transmigrators, and our territories are all nearby. In order to live better and safer, Kinriva City will formulate a new set of rules so that everyone can live normally. No one spoke. They just looked at him. Jiao Taining wasn't guilty at all. He slowly walked back and forth in the middle aisle. Since no one has any objections, then I'll talk about these new rules. He paused briefly, then continued. First, respond to the call of Kinriva City, and every city must send troops in battle. Second, hand over 200 slaves every month, whether recruited or plundered. The number must be sufficient. Third, and fifth, hand over 50,000 Warfire coins at the end of the year. These are the rules. I think everyone should have no objections, right? The transmigrators who participated in the negotiations all changed their expressions. This isn't a new rule. It's treating them like domesticated livestock. They kept cutting flesh off their bodies until there was no flesh left, and then they ate them. They had to pay slaves every month and money every year. This is outrageous. Jiao Taining, you're also a transmigrators. Recruiting soldiers requires soul crystals, and you have to hand over 200 people every month. How many of them can afford that? Someone asked coldly. You can recruit them, or you can plunder other tribes. There are plenty of orcs in this area. Can't you use your brain? Jiao Taining said with a sneer. Plundering will result in deaths, and in the end, it might actually reduce our troop strength. What? You mean you're not going to follow this rule? Jiao Taining's face turned cold as he looked at the person who had spoken. Above, the slave king with his enormous mouth and fangs also glared fiercely over. It was as if he dared to utter even half a word of dissent, they would swallow his head whole. The man's expression changed, and he immediately said, I will obey, I will obey. In his heart, he was already cursing Jiao Taining for being a bully who relied on his master's power. I'll agree to it for now, and then discuss it with everyone in the alliance when I get back. Seeing that no one spoke, Jiao Taining still wore a smug smile as he glanced at the group. Finally, his gaze fell on Ma Tianyi, and he said curiously, Alliance leader Ma, judging from your expression, you seem a little dissatisfied. Ma Tianyi was previously the leader of the Shanghai Alliance, and is now one of Fang Hao's subordinates. As long as he is kept in check, the others will not dare to have any other ideas. Everyone was shocked. This was deliberately trying to cause trouble for Ma Tianyi. Strategist Yao, what if we want to follow the rules, but can't gather enough people? Ma Tianyi asked. Ma Tianyi's face also showed tension. But this tension wasn't from Jiao Taining. It stemmed from his worry about the upcoming action. After all, they were in the enemy's stronghold. If things go wrong, you might end up killing yourself first. Splash. Before Jiao Taining could speak, the slave king, who was seated, swayed as he stood up and stepped down, chained by his arm. The two female orcs immediately got up and followed suit, climbing down. They are obedient, just like pets. You have two chances. If you don't have enough men, you can make up the difference next month. If you fail to deliver the men both times, your city will be breached, and everyone will be sold into slavery. The slave king walked down step by step, his deep voice ringing out. Seeing the slave king descend, Ma Tianyi also felt the pressure. He glanced out the window, swallowed hard, and continued. What the city lord said makes sense. Among the slaves, are there any differences between beastmen and humans? Everyone was taken aback. What's going on? You've actually matched up with the other person? This isn't like the previous Ma Mengzhu. The slave king grinned, seemingly pleased with Ma Tianyi's words. There's no difference, as long as the number of people reaches the required level. Oh, that makes sense, but before he could finish speaking, knock knock. Suddenly, a loud alarm bell was rung. It drifted throughout the entire city. Immediately afterwards, a commotion broke out outside the house. Large numbers of orc soldiers are gathering, rushing onto the city streets, and surging towards the city wall. And orc guards also rushed into the hall. Having confirmed the situation, G-Man said, Chieftain, we have discovered that the undead army is approaching this area and will soon be attacking the city. Undead. The slave king's expression also changed, and he angrily retorted, What nonsense? What kind of undead are here? The orc hurriedly said, They really are undead, and there are quite a few of them. The slave king casually tossed aside the iron chain in his hand and shouted, Bring me my armor. Just then, a sound of fighting came from outside the door. Soon, a figure clad in full black armor led a squad of human soldiers into the room. The slave king's face immediately contorted with rage. You're courting death. How dare you play games with me? Whoosh. Before the words were even finished, a dark figure rushed over quickly. Warhammer in hand, it slid out with a thud, landing directly on the Slave King's temple without him making any move. The immense force sent the Slave King flying sideways. With a loud crash, it smashed through a wall. Everyone was terrified by what they saw. The Slave King, as strong as an ox, was flung away as if he were a fly. Before the Slave King could get up, the figure in black armor gave chase once more. He slammed the warhammer down heavily, one blow after another. Each dull thud felt like a weight hanging over everyone's hearts. After a while, the black-armored warrior emerged, carrying warhammer in one hand and dragging the Slave King, whose limbs were twisted and whose fangs were broken, with the other. He glanced at Matiani and said, "I'll leave this to you. I'll go and help him open the city gate." "Oh," Matiani replied blankly, her heart still unable to calm down for a long time. Black-armored warrior walked outside. The transmigrators were left behind, their foreheads covered in cold sweat, staring in horror at the scene. "Leader Ma, is this your hero?" "Leader Ma is truly ruthless. He's already planned an attack on the city." "Leader Ma, you have the power, yet you didn't even give me a heads up. My people have already started to move, and I want them to come back. From now on, the Tsanyu gang will follow Alliance Leader Ma's lead. Please feel free to speak your mind." Flattery rang out from all directions. Ma Tianyi glanced at the crowd and ordered, "Take everyone into custody." The 100 guards who entered rushed forward and took control of all the transmigrators. "Ma Tianyi, what do you mean? Why are you arresting us? We have no grudge against you. What do you mean by this?" Ma Tianyi continued, "Everyone, listen to me. No one is sure if there are any special people among us. I'm sorry to trouble you all before we capture the city. We'll see you off safely after we're done. This is also to prevent news of the dead from spreading. First, bring the people under control, then resolve the issue gradually." In the crowd, Jiao Taining was sweating profusely. He was finished, having just curried favor with the Slave King. This short-lived fellow was killed today. His fate is unlikely to be much better. At City Wall, the undead began their attack. Shouts of battle and sounds of fighting filled the entire battlefield. Asylich, dragging the Slave King's corpse, walked directly to the city walls. But when the orc soldier saw his slain leader, he lost all will to hold out. The city gates were flung open, and the undead army poured into the city. Kenriva City has fallen. Lysis City. Rebecca finished giving her final instructions to the Lord Chancellor of the city. He then headed towards the study on the second floor. Pushing open the door, she saw Lorana and Fang Hao already waiting for her inside. "Do you want me to come with you?" Lorana asked. "Today is the day Rebecca goes to the Hall of Blessing. The airship in the courtyard is ready and undergoing final checks." "No need. I'm going to the Hall of Justice. It's too dangerous for you to go. Acidi is with me, so there won't be any problems." Rebecca's face also showed some reluctance. "You offend so many people every day. Who knows who might try to get back at you?" "Oh dear, those are nobles from Silverwing City. Do you think they would dare to make a move in the Hall of Justice?" "Don't worry, it'll be fine." Lorana and Rebecca chatted. Fang Hao, on the other side of the screen, put the exchanged items into his backpack. Items include soft armor, magic scrolls, revolver guns, detonators, potions, teleportation scrolls, and more. These are all for Rebecca. Although the possibility of danger is not high, as Lorana said, Rebecca has offended quite a few people, so it is necessary to be prepared just in case. Finally, the bag became bulging. "Lord of the city." At this moment, a soft, sweet voice sounded from behind. Looking back, I saw my personal maid, Eleanor, standing behind me with her head down. "Is Eleanor coming along too?" "Yes, I need to go take care of Madam." After saying that, she stepped forward, looked up at him with her big eyes, and said, "I won't be able to see you, sir, for a while." Eleanor was Rebecca's personal maid. She knew too many secrets and was not allowed to marry anyone else, so it was essentially handed over to Fang Hao. According to Fang Hao's understanding, they are somewhat like the maids who accompanied their brides in ancient times. "My lord, I will miss you," Eleanor said softly. Fang Hao felt a warmth in his heart for this little girl. He pinched the other person's cheek and said comfortingly. He cupped her fair cheeks and kissed her red lips deeply. "I'll only be gone for a few days. Take good care of your wife and yourselves. When I get back, I'll take you to stay with me for a few days." Eleanor blushed. "Yes, sir." The two emerged from behind the screen. Lorana kept reminding me of things to be careful about. Fang Hao said, "In my backpack, I've prepared a magic scroll, a detonator, a revolver pistol, and a teleportation scroll for you. It's marked with Lysis City. If there's any danger, just come back. Rebecca smiled and nodded. Okay, I got it. You can also keep an eye on things here for me. If you find anything wrong when you get back, I'll give you a piece of my mind. Okay, don't worry about things here. Just then, the guard's voice came from outside the door. Madam, everything is ready. We may depart. Okay, I understand, Rebecca replied, then said to the two of them, all right, we're leaving now. The group opened the door and went outside. We boarded the prepared airship and headed towards Silverwing City. Fang Hao and his companion also returned to their own city. Afternoon, Fang Hao traveled to Kinriva City in the Orc territory domain. When he sat on the throne of the city lord, a system notification appeared shortly afterward. Kinriva City, city level 11. Attributes: animal husbandry plus 25%, orc reproduction plus 35%. Description: a city with attributes that can bring various beneficial effects, accelerating the city's construction and development. A level 11 city isn't actually considered low in this Orcish region. However, the additional attributes are somewhat too simplistic. The only significant increase is in reproduction, which has increased by 35%. Of all the cities that have been unlocked, this one is the most encouraging for childbirth. Unlock blueprints: slave barns, orc race; hunting grounds, orc race; orc dining halls, orc race; and raider dens, orc race. After capturing the territory, several building blueprints were unlocked, but they were all orc faction blueprints. As far as the territory is currently concerned, no one can use it. Fang Hao took a quick look. For blueprints, 3 of which are barracks-type buildings. Slave Shed recruits a unit called Slave Suicide Squad. The hunting grounds recruit slave traders, while the Raiders' Den recruits a type of soldier called Raiders. The remaining one, Orc Dining Hall, is a special building that serves as a place for troops to eat. The blueprint faction this time doesn't seem to belong to the Orc Orthodox lineage, but rather to a category of slave traders. Just like in Human faction, there is also the Bandits faction. It belongs to a less popular branch. Aside from these blueprints, there weren't any other great finds. After all, the whole city is still relatively underdeveloped. At this moment, Ma Tianyi led several human soldiers in and quickly walked in. Boss, you're here. Today looks pretty good, Fang Hao said. Yes, the siege went very smoothly. We took control of the city with almost no losses in terms of manpower. Ma Tianyi gave a brief account of today's attack. In just one morning, they captured a city. This is even faster than the handover of work. Before Fang Hao could speak, Ma Tianyi continued. By the way, boss, there are also a few transmigrators participating this time. They are all leaders of nearby alliances. They all know about the Undead siege. I have detained them temporarily. What should we do with them? Fang Hao thought for a moment and said, go and tell them that if they are willing to join us, just recruit them directly. If they are not willing, just tell them to send them back. Now it's that time of year. People from special factions also began to appear one after another. Many people have already guessed that Fang Hao is an Undead faction member, so there's no need to deliberately hide it. Those who don't want to join, just put them back. Understood. Ma Tianyi continued. There are also a large number of slaves in the city, with preliminary estimates reaching nearly 10,000. What should we do with them? This is the time when slave traders do business. The number of slaves was naturally large as well. Fang Hao said, don't release it yet. The heroes I've arranged will come tomorrow, and we'll hand it over to them then. Tomorrow, Copper Bull will arrive with Bull-Headed Man and take over the city. In that case, it will be easier for orcs to manage other orcs than for humans. Understood. What about Asyulich? Oh, Miss Asyulich. She's overseeing the barracks and keeping an eye on the soldiers, Ma Tianyi said immediately. This blazing martial god was so ferocious that it startled Ma Tianyi. The Slave King is the fiercest hero in this area. In the opponent's hands, they were like chicks, unable to withstand a single move. He was smashed to pieces, flying all over the room, and when he was finally dragged out, he looked utterly miserable. Kindness. After the report was finished, Ma Tianyi continued. Boss, I'll go talk to the other alliance leaders first and see what they think. Okay, go ahead. Ma Tianyi led his men away, heading towards a building on one side. Soon, Jia emerged from behind, carrying a pile of spoils. These slave traders are really quite wealthy. Savings of over 2 million Warfire coins is rare among orc cities. Among the loot was a golden treasure chest. After opening, obtained, slave traders' thick leather helmet, blueprint. Slave traders' thick leather armor, blueprint. Slave traders' stainless steel cage, blueprint. Ironwood shackles, blueprint. Beast tooth stone plus 22. Warfire coin plus 185. A flash of light appeared, and the reward materialized before them. Equipping the blueprint set is the green slave trader set. Perhaps it's because the equipment requirements for slave traders aren't high to begin with, as they're mostly green. Leather armor. It's relatively rare to find a green outfit in a golden chest. It wasn't very useful, so I just glanced at it and added it to my favorites. The last two are blue. Blueprint. White steel cage. Iron 220. Cast iron block 180. White steel ingot 150. Metal parts 85. Ironwood shackles. 8 ironwood pieces. 150 cast iron blocks. 7 metal parts. Both are blue prison garments. Ironwood has been used, especially in ironwood shackles. These are materials for building a level 15 territory, and they're being used on prison equipment. Slave Trader focused its development on capturing slaves. Take care of everything. Fang Hao then temporarily entrusted this place to Ma Tianyi and Asyulich. Copper Bull will bring Soldier over in the next couple of days to continue taking over the city. Return to the main city. Skeleton merchants began to take stock of the spoils they had brought back. Are there still no markets for the equipment of those giants and trolls? No. With the current market, it would be difficult to absorb such a large number of weapon devices. Du Jin replied from the side. There's nothing we can do about it. The Divine Realm quests completely disrupted the market balance. A large number of troll equipment flooded the market. The troll faction's transmigrators got a good deal, but they still couldn't consume everyone's equipment. The entire market is basically unable to sell anything. By the way, keep an eye on Undead faction's air unit buildings. If the prices aren't outrageous, buy them. Fang Hao thought of the Dragon Clan and gave them a heads up. The greatest enemy at present is still the dragon race. According to the goblins of the Merchant Alliance, the dragons are still putting pressure on the Merchant Alliance. It's hard to say whether they can receive blessings at that time. Once the location of their territory is revealed, a great war with the dragons will follow. It's impossible for Orange Hero to come. They're probably going to come out in full force. Yes, sir, I will keep that in mind. Du Jin nodded. At that moment, soft footsteps were heard from the second floor. Looking up, I saw Lorana standing on the stairs. He said, Fang Hao, come here for a moment. I have something to tell you. Du Jin, you guys go ahead with your work. Once you've finished counting and written it down, just send it to the cellar. Yes. Fang Hao nodded and went upstairs to follow Lorana into the room. Closed the door. He took Lorana's hand and made her sit on his lap. What's wrong? Rebecca will be back in a few days. Don't worry. Lorana hesitated for a moment, then said, I plan to go back to Eternal Night City. After all, it's been a while since I've been back. Last time, Lorana mentioned going back to take a look. However, at that time, the Dragon Clan was about to attack, so Fang Hao did not agree. I'm afraid that if you leave, your family won't let you come back. Oh no, I also want to talk to my mother about you. She should be able to accept you. But what? Lorana asked, somewhat displeased. Isn't your mother a demigod? What if she finds out I tricked her daughter into marrying her and comes to kill me? Fang Hao said seriously, this is not impossible. Vampires are no benevolent beings. They act even more recklessly than the undead. He might think that he had been deceived by him after being out of contact for decades, and then come and kill him. But then there's nowhere to seek justice. Lorana chuckled. Don't worry, I'll explain everything to her. You saved me, and we love each other, so nothing like that will happen. Fang Hao thought about it, and realized he couldn't stop Lorana from going back to see her family. Moreover, Lorana's mother is a demigod, making her his mother-in-law. A demigod mother-in-law, if she handles this relationship well, will also have certain benefits for herself. This is something that no amount of money can buy. All right, I'll have someone prepare some gifts for you tomorrow. You can take them back with you. I can't appear too stingy. Lorana grabbed the hand that had slipped under her skirt. Just talk, and keep your hands to yourself. Okay, let's lie down and talk. With that, he led her to lie down on the bed. Before he could speak, she covered his mouth with a heavy kiss. Wah! Lorana's eyes widened, and she reached out to gently pat his chest. Night fell. On a reef not far from the Fin Sea region, ancient blood god servant, the skeleton fishman priest, commands the skeleton soldiers to continue cleaning the giant ship. Suddenly, the sea in the distance began to churn as if boiling water. Whoosh whoosh, iron spears flew out from underwater. Ding ding ding. One by one, nails were driven into the hull of the ship and into the body of the skeleton warrior. The ancient blood god servant leaps from the sea and looks out at the distant horizon. Countless sea creatures could be seen gazing in this direction from afar. Beat the drums. Prepare to meet the enemy. In the dimly lit room, Fang Hao and Lorena were talking about Eternal Night City. Halfway through the conversation, a notification sound suddenly came from the communicating conch shell screen. What's wrong? Seeing that he stopped halfway through his sentence, Lorena asked curiously. There was no reply. Instead, he took a seashell from his storage space and placed it to his ear. Immediately, the voice of the ancient blood god servant was heard. My lord, the sea city has been attacked. Both of them were startled upon hearing this. Fang Hao immediately asked, Who is it? Is there any danger? After a brief pause, a reply came from the other end. They were from the Sea Clan. The enemy has been repelled. Okay, I'll go there now. Putting away the communicating conch shell, Fang Hao said apologetically, Something happened on the ship. I'll go with you to take a look. I don't have anything to do tonight anyway, Lorena said directly. The two quickly changed into their own equipment. After leaving the room, he summoned two more heroes, Spencer and Bio. Fang Hao didn't call the others, since it was nighttime and the situation on the other side was unclear. As for Dimitrika, he was not in the city at this time either. Instead, they went back to Lizardman's side. Over at Lizardman's, once everything is ready, release the teleportation light screen and disappear from the spot. It reappeared. The figures of 4 people emerged from the light screen. There wasn't a single ray of light on the dimly lit deck. The surroundings were silent, except for the lingering smell of gunpowder in the air. No attacking sea creatures were seen, nor were any attacks landed on the ship. Only in the dim light could one vaguely see a skull reflecting the moonlight, moving incessantly. At that moment, the figure of the ancient blood god's servant leaped from the sea and landed on the deck with a thud. Approaching Fang Hao, he said, My lord, how's the situation? The sea creature's soldier attempted to attack the ships, but have been repelled, said the ancient blood god servant. Fang Hao nodded and continued. How many enemies are there? And what is the situation? The attacking enemy was not large, numbering around 1,000. After leaving some behind, they retreated directly. It is currently unclear whether they have any further plans to attack. The location of this reef is relatively secluded. In addition, given its proximity to the Fin Sea region, it's unlikely that anyone would pass through here. But the sea creatures still managed to discover their location. It seems that the attack on Giant Claw Island has angered the sea creatures. However, the sea creatures clearly underestimated the strength of the ships. Those repairing the ship outside are only a few skeletons. With over 1,000 people, they couldn't even get close to the ships. At this moment, orange flames suddenly appeared on the sea to the left, and wooden boats engulfed in flames rapidly approached. Fang Hao was taken aback. What kind of trick was this? Were they going to set the ship on fire? Have the soldiers sink these fire ships, Fang Hao said. Splash! Groups of skeleton Jiaowei swam quickly toward the fire ship. Beneath the fire ship, there were also sea creatures called soldier. The two sides met and immediately began fighting. Meanwhile, on the other side of the sea, countless sea creatures rushed in again, carrying various tools, attempting to approach the giant ship. But they were discovered by the spirits of the dead in the water just as they reached the destination. After a battle, the sea creatures that attempted a sneak attack were repelled, and the other sea creatures also began to retreat. Hundreds of fire ships had their bottoms pierced and sank to the bottom of the sea. The firelight disappeared, and the sea was once again swallowed by darkness. Fang Hao looked in the direction where the fire ship had sunk. I wondered to myself, which transmigrators had come up with this scheme again? They wanted to set the ship on fire, but that was clearly not their style in this world. The sea returned to calm. Fang Hao looked at Baiyu beside him. Sea creatures, did you swim all the way here? Baiyu Hu is a sea creature, but she was born into a pirate family. I do have some knowledge in this area. He immediately exclaimed, That's impossible. How so? Just like humans traveling. They normally walk on their own 2 legs, but for long distances, they still need carriages and horses to lead the way. The same goes for sea creatures. They can't swim directly from the Rainbow Islands to here, Baihu explained. So, there are sea creature ships in the darkness nearby. There definitely is. Fang Hao nodded and continued. Spencer, my lord, what are your orders? Locate the enemy's ships and sink them all. Understood, sir. Spencer accepted the order, leaped off the ship, transformed into a dragon, and disappeared into the night sky. The sea creatures were all somewhat bewildered at this point. The intelligence report stated that there were only 1,000 or so undead. Once we start fighting, we can't seem to kill all the undead, and there are even more that we can fire cannons at. Dozens of sea creature generals stood on the deck, watching the sunken fire ship in the distance. Their faces looked rather pale. We sent a message to His Majesty the King, but the intelligence is highly inaccurate. The number of the undead is not just 1,000, but probably tens of thousands, or even more, said a sea creature general. Intelligence can be inaccurate, but it can't be this far off. A few thousand people and tens of thousands of people are not the same thing at all. What do we do now? Sinking that ship is obviously impossible, and this is the Fin Sea region, where the smell of blood will easily attract those fishmen, another general asked. Let's retreat first. Dragging this out here isn't a solution. Really, the leader of the merfolk took a deep look into the distance. Everyone wanted to retreat, and the army's morale had reached a low point. Continuing to launch a forced attack is unlikely to be effective. So he simply said, let's retreat, let's go back too. Just as everyone was speaking, suddenly, a whooshing sound came from overhead. Suddenly looking up, I saw a huge shadow falling in front of me. Roar! A crimson-colored flame swept across the hull. Along the way, generals and soldiers were reduced to ashes in the flames, sails burned out, and fires rose from the decks. The orange flames illuminated the entire night sky. Only under this bright night sky could everyone clearly see the figure flying by. A giant dragon, resembling a dried-up corpse, hovered above the fleet. Each time it circles once, it releases dragon breath downwards. Ships were set ablaze, and the sea creature's soldiers, shouting loudly, leaped into the sea to escape. The fire burned brighter and brighter, illuminating the entire sea area. Fang Hao watched as the fire sank ship after ship. The sea creature's soldiers also jumped into the water like dumplings. Thump! Ancient blood god's servant leaped from underwater onto the deck. My lord, the sea people have left to the south. Should we pursue them? No need. Gather your forces and send the ships toward the sea tribe's territory. Let's also take a look at the sea tribe's islands. Fang Hao continued, issuing orders. Yes, sir. The ancient blood god's servant leaped into the sea and began making arrangements. Some of the troops at sea traveled with the ship, while the majority went into the ship's cabins. Once everything is ready, the ship began to adjust its angle, sailed out of the reef area, and headed towards the Rainbow Islands. Once the ship is in service, it will officially enter the normal shipping route. Fang Hao gave a few instructions, left Bayuhu and Spencer behind, and returned to the main city with Lorana. Allah! Maid's shouts outside the window startled Fang Hao from his sleep. I got back in the early hours of the morning last night. It felt like dawn had broken in the blink of an eye. You're awake. Lorana, wearing a purple nightgown, was lying on a soft couch not far away, her fair and delicate legs crossed, holding a comic book in her hands. You watched it all night, with your eyes open. Do you expect me to let you hold me all night? Lorana replied casually. Well, you're going back today, right? I'll have someone prepare some gifts for you to take back with you, Fang Hao said as he put on his clothes. Lorana glanced at it and said, Aren't you going to attack the sea creatures? Don't you need me to stay and help you? It's fine if I leave in a few days. Fang Hao also considered this matter yesterday, but the strength of the sea creatures is only SOSO. The contestants who go back and forth with the Federation are actually not much of a threat. The most dangerous enemy is still the dragons. Lorana can take advantage of this time to leave, so she can go and come back sooner. It also allowed me to get in touch with my demigod mother-in-law. They're just sea creatures. You don't need to lift a finger. I can handle them myself. You should just go and come back sooner, Fang Hao said. Okay, I got it. The two got dressed and left the room together. Lord's Manor Hall. The weather is quite nice now, and Maids gets up very early every day. Hearing that Lorana was leaving, Yer and Jia and some maids came to see her off. After spending time together, the women's opinions of Lorana have changed significantly. The construction of amusement park, in particular, really depends on Lorana. Otherwise, it would be really difficult to build it. Why are you leaving all of a sudden? Did Fang Hao bully you? We'll miss you when you leave. Someone is about to become a hero, and the second one to ride the roller coaster is the one you'll get to ride. If you leave, you won't be able to ride it. Lorana listened to maids, and as they chatted back and forth, she also smiled. She remembered that the little rabbits were all afraid of her. When did I become so popular that so many people wanted me to stay when I was about to leave? I'm just going home for a short trip. I'll be back in a few days and bring you gifts from there, Lorana said with a smile. Bats, let's bring back a few rotting corpse heads and build a haunted house. No, that thing will attract a lot of bugs. Scholar Nielsen knows how to preserve things, so it can be treated easily. I overheard the girls chatting animatedly nearby. Fang Hao smiled knowingly, hoping that Lorana would consider this place her home. He couldn't participate in the women's conversations either. What he had to do was prepare plenty of gifts for Lorana. Let her take it back. Outside the door, skeletons were going in and out. Various gift boxes and brocades were neatly stacked on the central wooden table. There are ornately decorated gold and silver jewelry, best-selling cosmetics with openwork gift boxes, and exquisite fabrics from Bone Fabric Shop. In short, Fang Hao had prepared everything he could to support his demigod mother, Lorana. Just then, footsteps sounded. Dujin walked in from outside. Holding a mahogany box in his hand, he said, "My lord, we have already received the corresponding amount from the Alliance." The wooden crate was opened, revealing a large number of Warfire cards. Rainbow Pearl Island, Royal Palace. Inside the magnificent and splendid palace, Neptune, Saintsbury, sat on his grand throne. After hearing the latest news that came back, Aquaman's eyes suddenly sharpened, like a drawn blade. "Chop him up." The words fell as soon as they were spoken. Outside the palace, the glint of swords flashed. Hundreds of people were instantly beheaded, blood splattered, and the head rolled around in all directions. These people were all members of the team that gathered intelligence last time. Such a serious intelligence error led to the burning of ships and heavy casualties in the army. So someone naturally has to take responsibility. After the murder, someone immediately cleaned up the scene. The body was dragged away, and the blood was washed away. Inside the royal palace, Aquaman's face was grim, his eyes filled with anger. The ministers below all bowed their heads. It felt like a huge rock was pressing on my heart, and I even had to breathe carefully, afraid that I might accidentally attract the attention of the Sea King. "Damn undead." Aquaman murmured something. Land-based races typically do not keep their forces at sea for extended periods. The sea creatures also noticed this and planned to teach the undead army a lesson by sinking their ship while the enemy forces were withdrawing and repairing it. Once this giant ship sinks, the foundation for attacking the islands will be lost. But little did I know, it was all a conspiracy by the other side. What's left out is just bait to lure them over. After a long silence, Neptune finally came to his senses and composed himself. He looked down with an air of authority and said, "Does anyone acknowledge this undead fleet?" A sea creature minister cautiously stepped forward and said, "We contacted the undead desert, the Hundredfold cemetery, and the Rake cemetery, and they all said it was not their army." "Hundredfold? What kind of force is that?" Neptune asked. "Oh, Hundredfold is the former Otis Great Necropolis. Otis has died, so he was renamed Hundredfold," the minister immediately explained. At that moment, Aquaman also remembered this matter. It was because of the turmoil on Otis's side that the Sea Clan planned to extort money from the Federation. The conflict between the two sides has escalated to this point. They all deny it. "Yes, this army seems to have appeared out of nowhere. We can't find out where it came from. Desert is too far from here, but it is the true home of the undead. While it's possible to establish a navy, the likelihood of doing so is slim. It's hard to understand why they wouldn't acknowledge the two large cemeteries closest to the sea creatures, the Hundredfold Cemetery and the Reich Cemetery. If you start a war, you must have a purpose. Whether it's for the needs of war or for the plunder of resources, there must be a goal." But after the attack, there was no further news, and it was impossible to find out who instigated it. It was like nothing had happened, just a game for fun. This left the sea creatures somewhat confused about what the other party was thinking. "That's one of Hundredfold and Reich. That damn rotten bone. The guy who does it but won't admit it," Aquaman cursed. "Your Majesty, I don't think it may be them." Another minister stepped forward and said. Aquaman glanced at it, his expression somewhat displeased. "Tell me, besides them, who else could attack Giant Claw Island from this direction?" The minister bowed first and continued. "Your Majesty, do you think these two large cemeteries have the capability? If they do, they would prioritize expanding their territories on land. Why would they attack us without any reason? This is indeed a problem. So what are your thoughts?" Aquaman asked him. The minister cleared his throat and continued. "Your Majesty, I would like to bring in a transmigrators who have some intelligence, though this is only a guess." Everyone was puzzled, wondering what was going on now. "Let him in," Aquaman said. Soon, two Jiao guards entered with a male transmigrators. Transmigrators had their heads down, but their eyes kept scanning around, giving them a shifty, cunning look. The minister asked, "Repeat what you told me yesterday here." Transmigrators nodded and immediately said, in Transmigrators, Fang Hao is undead faction, and I heard he's very strong. Transmigrators? Fang Hao, what is all this nonsense? Aquaman frowned, looking somewhat impatient. The minister immediately pressed further. The Fang Hao you mentioned, is it undead faction? Someone in the channel said he is undead faction. Transmigrators replied immediately. All right, how strong is Fang Hao among your transmigrators? I'm asking about his troop strength and combat capabilities. The minister continued. Transmigrators replied. First, he's ranked number 1 in transmigrators. He's the best among us. At this point, the others understood what he meant. This suggests that the attack on Giant Claw Island was carried out by a transmigrators. But this idea is too unrealistic. Transmigrators have only been around for a short time, probably less than a year. Moreover, the marine life can be said to have a close relationship with transmigrators. He also supported transmigrators, which transmigrators could attack an island all by themselves. The minister's questions did not stop there. He continued, where is this Fang Hao? It's in the Federation, I think. I'm not sure. Nobody knows where it is. The mention of the Federation caused everyone to frown. Giant Claw Island was attacked while they were at war with the Federation. Didn't you say he was the undead faction? How could he be connected to the Federation? This time, the question was directed at Aquaman. Transmigrators felt a sense of pressure, and beads of sweat appeared on their foreheads. But they still said, I heard it. It's just a rumor circulating in the channel. Explain. Some say that Fang Hao has climbed up to the female city lord of a city in the Federation and has received her support. Her territory is also being protected by her, so no one knows where she is. What is the name of this city? Well, I can't remember. I just happened to see someone talking about it. Transmigrators said, wiping away sweat. After hearing Transmigrators' account, no one dared to underestimate Fang Hao anymore. The factions, strengths, and causes all match up. It seems plausible that Transmigrators, being the world's number 1, would help the Federation resolve some issues. If it really is him, then that's truly terrifying. A Transmigrators, who have been in this world for less than a year. It's truly astonishing that they were able to destroy a heavily fortified island all by themselves. Unfortunately, this Fang Hao belongs to the Federation. The Transmigrators supported by the sea creatures are pitifully weak, at best village chiefs, and all they do is complain about being poor and demand supplies. Let the Transmigrators go down first. Aquaman, wearing a crown and holding a golden harpoon, lowered his gaze back down. Do you think it might be Fang Hao? Now, the ministers began to express their opinions. I think it's very likely that it's Fang Hao. The Human Federation, seeing that it can't gain the upper hand, is using the dead to distract us. Where does a Transmigrators get such great capabilities? Didn't the person just say that this person is the number 1 Transmigrators? With the help of the Federation, it shouldn't be a problem. Even with the Federation's technology, they couldn't build a ship that big. Everyone chimed in with their opinions, but it was clear that many people thought it was highly likely that this person was Fang Hao. Neptune pondered for a moment. Then he ordered, have people continue to track the ship's movements, prepare provisions, and calculate the amount needed to wage war against the Federation. Everyone froze, realizing that war with the Federation was imminent. Yes, Your Majesty. On the other side, the light flashed. Lorana appeared in an abandoned ancient castle. The castle was empty, with only gray stone walls, wooden floors, and a fireplace that had been extinguished and cleaned. Familiar memories flooded her mind. This was where she used to live. You moved? Lorana, wrapped in a purple robe and carrying 2 boxes, one large and one small, in each arm, walked straight out of the castle. Dark clouds covered the sky, obscuring the sun overhead. This isn't just a cloudy day. It's like this all year round in Eternal Night City. Eternal Night City, also known as the City of Eternal Night. A city that is shrouded in dark clouds all year round. Vampires can go out normally without worrying about the sun overhead. Stepping out of the building, you enter a bustling street. It's not like Fang Hao's side. This is the kingdom of vampires. Not only can you see vampires, but you can also see other living beings everywhere, mostly humans. They are the residents here, and the condition for living here is that they pay a blood tax. In the vampire clan, there is no concept of cruelty or not. The only difference is that different races use different methods to exploit the lower classes. Miss, we have a batch of top-quality coffins for raising corpses in our shop. They are absolutely comfortable. Would you like to come in and take a look? We offer teeth polishing and maintenance services, and we can also set diamonds, which would perfectly suit your beautiful temperament. Would you like to give it a try? Your noble vampire lady. Would you like some human slaves? Their blood is quite delicious and not expensive at all. As I walked onto the street, I was greeted by a cacophony of sales pitches. Lorana ignored them, carrying 2 large trunks, and hailed a carriage. To Blood Fortress. I heard Blood Fortress. The salespeople vanished in the blink of an eye, leaving the area instantly empty. Glug glug. The carriage traveled along the stone road toward the Earl's mansion. Blood Fortress. Inside a luxurious bedroom, a servant dressed in a black suit cautiously entered the bedroom. He stopped before an exceptionally ornate black and gold coffin, bowed deeply, and said softly, "Mrs. Isabella, Miss Lorana has returned and brought you a gift." The room was quiet, with a faint scent of spices in the air. Sizzle. A faint friction sound arose. The coffin lid, which fit perfectly, was opened a crack. "You said Lorana is back?" A cold voice came from inside the coffin. "Yes, madam. Miss Lorana is waiting for you in hall." Snap. The black and gold wooden coffin was fully opened, and a pair of pale, slender hands adorned with gemstone rings rested on the edge of the coffin. The main city, Lord's Manor. After seeing Lorana off, Fang Hao immediately got busy with his own things. Recruit units, then reorganize the units in Hidden Arms Cave 1 to prepare for the attack on the Sea Clan. Some units can be recruited in the main city to fill Hidden Arms Cave. The rest will be recruited directly from the ships at sea. The trade with the Murlocs resolved the shortage of sea-scale stone during recruitment. The recruitment materials required for this type of naval unit are scarce on land, but they are not rare underwater. Infantry from Hidden Arms Cave. Marine units and bone dragons entered Hidden Arms Cave. The densely packed skeletons began to move, with Dimitrika and Jia and other heroes directing them from the sidelines. Bite. Suddenly, a notification sound rang. Upon opening it, I saw that it was a message from Matiani. Copper Bull has taken command and has begun to take over the city's troops. Copper Bull has arrived in Kinriva City. It was faster than he had imagined. This isn't the first time Copper Bull has taken over a city. In fact, he's quite adept at it. Upon arrival, he immediately took command of the troops and brought under control of some uncontrollable forces within the city. "Have you tallied how many slaves there are?" Fang Hao continued to ask. Matiani replied, "There are more than 12,000 people, all of whom are orcs, mostly young and middle-aged men." "Yes, tell Copper Bull that if he doesn't have a place to put these slaves, I can find some space to house them," Fang Hao said. After all, Amanda still owes some people. If there's nowhere to put these orcs, they could be sent to Amanda's place. "Okay, by the way, boss, I've already recruited all the Alliance leaders who participated in the Slave King negotiations. Counting the members, there are over 200 people." Matiani's message came again. Fang Hao knew about this, and the fact that the various vassal lords incorporated the transmigrators was also considered territorial expansion. There's no harm in it, as long as it's managed well. "Okay, I understand. Hang up the chat." Fang Hao couldn't help but think of Lorana again. I don't know if Lorana saw her mother after she got back. Was he beaten to death? There was also some concern about what the other party, a demigod, would think after hearing that his daughter suddenly had a man. I hope that the gift I bring will change the other person's first impression. In a gloomy and luxurious palace, on the grayish-white throne sat a mature woman with an air of nobility and a solemn expression. Her long black hair was tied up. She wore a black dress with gold patterns and held a golden wine glass in her hand. She leaned back in the chair in a somewhat languid posture. Her right leg was draped over her left, revealing her exquisitely crafted boots. He glanced down and said casually, "What made you decide to come back?" This is completely different from what Fang Hao thought. Isabella did not show much emotional fluctuation when faced with her daughter's sudden return. There was no anger or joy, only a hint of resentment in his words. Lorana sat in the chair below, not answering, but simply saying, "Why did the castle move here? That area has been designated as a commercial zone, and we couldn't find anyone to contact you." Isabella placed her glass on a waiter's tray and continued, "You sneaked out and found what you were looking for?" Lorana, a dark gold level hero, is someone few outsiders can do anything to. Of course, she didn't know that her daughter was capable enough, but lacked social experience on her first trip out. He was tricked by Red Duke and dismembered and sealed away for decades. "Well, that's better than being stuck here," Lorana continued. Isabella looked at her, let out a heavy sigh, and said, Stay here for a few days and tell me what fun things are happening outside. I haven't been out in a long time. If you get bored, go to the fortress and help your brother. They're at war with humans there. Lorena's departure prompted her, as a mother, to reflect on her own actions. I'm planning to arrange some things for them. It's better than them staying cooped up at home. I'm not going to any fortress. I'll stay with you for a few days. Then I'll be going back to my husband's place, Lorena said, crossing her legs. As soon as the words were spoken, the atmosphere in the hall froze instantly, and the air began to feel thick. Isabella's languid gaze suddenly sharpened, like a drawn blade. The attendant standing beside him lowered his head again. My legs were shaking, and even breathing became difficult. Is it strange? Have you forgotten how old I am? Lorena seemed unaffected, pushing the 2 wooden crates at her feet forward. Here, these are gifts for you. He originally wanted to come in person, but the sea creatures attacked his territory. He'll come to see you next time. Isabella narrowed her eyes. The rising anger subsided somewhat because of her daughter's words. What kind of person is he? Isabella took a deep breath, suppressing her terrifying aura. Lorena spoke softly. A man, not very old, who has his own territory. I didn't know he was a man. I asked him which prince he was or what his status was. Lorena thought for a moment and then asked, Why? Do you need to know so much detail? Isabella took the wine glass back from the servant's hand. Gently shake it, and the bright red wine swirls in the golden glass. Shouldn't a mother know who her daughter's husband is? Why don't you take a look and see what gift he has prepared for you? I can tell you about him in detail later, and his territory is also a very interesting place. Isabella frowned as she looked at her daughter. She felt that her youngest daughter was very different from before. After thinking for a moment, he waved his hand and ordered, Prepare a banquet and inform all the nobles in the city that my daughter has returned. They are all to attend the banquet. Yes, madam. Also, compile a list of these gifts. Understood, madam. The servants left. Isabella stood up and slowly walked down the steps. Come on, I'll show you the new room. It's been empty for over 50 years. Night fell. After adjusting the troop strength, Fang Hao was still worried, so he contacted Rebecca and Lorena separately. Rebecca is still on her way to the Hall of Blessing. We traveled along the Hall of Justice's main road, and since we were on an airship, we didn't encounter any danger, though the journey was a bit boring. On Lorena's side, it was rather noisy. From what she said, she was attending a banquet hosted by her mother. Fang Hao tentatively inquired about her mother's attitude and received the reply that there were no special circumstances at the moment. Vampires are active at night, and this is their time of day. After exchanging a few words, I didn't bother her any further. Not long after, Yer and the little white ones also returned from amusement park. Fang Hao led the group upstairs to rest. The next day, at the first light of dawn, Fang Hao just went to the ship to check on its navigation. Some types of soldiers were recruited. He then received a message from Yer and immediately returned by sea. I tidied up my clothes a bit. Inside the hall, we were greeted by the equally elegantly dressed lizard folk queen, Anastasia. The queen wore a peacock blue gown, her long, slender neck held high, adorned with gold jewelry, her demeanor noble and elegant. As time went by, it became clear that her belly was starting to bulge. Your Majesty, what have you been busy with lately? You've gotten so thin. I'll have Dimitrika bring you here to eat from now on, so you can get all plump up. Fang Hao said immediately. The phrase, fair-skinned and chubby, doesn't seem quite right. Lizard folk queen, belonging to the red-scale lizard man, would be more accurately described as red and plump. Of course, this isn't just random speculation. The Glutton's Gold Stew Pot has been documented to have a variety of dishes, including dragon meat, so its nutritional value is definitely high. The queen rolled her eyes at him and continued, I just came to see if you've been discovered by the dragons. If you can't hold them off, you can go to the southern swamp, and I can make you plump and healthy there. Thank you. If that day ever comes, I will go and seek refuge with the queen. The two exchanged a few words. Without further ado, the queen continued, I'm here to confirm with you again about the glazed tiles. Upon hearing glazed tiles, Fang Hao immediately put down his water glass, his face turning serious. Glazed tiles are materials used to upgrade Lord's Manor to level 15. The production conditions are still unclear, but he ordered the corresponding quantity through his connection with Lizard Man. It's been a few months since I placed the order. Is the quantity enough? Fang Hao asked. Let me check the quantity with you, and I can deliver it to you this week. That's great. There are 5,000 pieces in total. If more can be sold, I'll buy them too. The queen nodded. This is the same number I wrote down. I can provide it to you soon. No problem. The two continued chatting for a while about their collaboration. Fang Hao continued. By the way, does the Holy Dynasty have anything that can defend against aerial weapons? In the air? Are you trying to defend against the dragons? That's one way to think about it. If it were any other force, Fang Hao wouldn't have mentioned these things so much. However, the two sides are already allies with the Southern Lizard Man, and their relationship is even better. The other side also knew about the dragon attack, so there was no need to hide it. I do have some weapons to deal with aerial units. I'll have someone bring them tomorrow, and you can see if you need any, the queen said after thinking for a moment. Good. The two chatted for a while longer, discussing future collaborations. It was almost time. Fang Hao then called her back. Let her accompany the lizardfolk queen to stroll around the city and check on the progress of amusement park. As one of the mistresses of this city, you can perfectly represent the main city. Fang Hao then returned to the sea, sailing with the ship towards the archipelago. Eternal Night City. The banquet lasted until this morning. Inside the dimly lit room, on either side of the table by the window, two women who look similar but have completely different temperaments. Isabella, still in her black and gold patterned gown, leaned against the armrest of a chair, her demeanor elegant and exuding a queenly aura. The hem of her skirt was slightly lifted, revealing her long, straight legs encased in black stockings. Stockings? They're also produced here in Eternal Night City. I heard they were developed by transmigrators, but the materials and craftsmanship of yours are better. Lorana sat to one side, wearing a purple cloud pattern long dress that was extremely form-fitting. She smiled faintly and said, "These are all made of the finest silk, so they're naturally comfortable. There are also cosmetics. Let me put some on you to try." Isabella was pulled to sit in front of the dressing table. The daughter then began opening the gift box and getting ready. "Tell me, how did you meet Fang Hao?" Lorana took them out one by one and casually said, "If we're talking about the first time we met, it was in the cemetery, where he found my heart." Heart? Isabella frowned. "Yes, he saved me on the condition that I help him establish his territory." Isabella suddenly realized that her daughter's outing wasn't as easy as it seemed. "It must have been a series of profound and memorable events that I encountered. Tell me properly." Lorana didn't hide anything, demonstrating how to use the cosmetics to her mother while recounting what had happened since she left home. From being tricked by Red Duke into drinking poisoned wine, to Fang Hao later collecting her body and rescuing him. And, during this time, she witnessed the development of the Fang Hao territory. The speed at which its territory expanded even to include surrounding forces was truly astonishing. Even with a demigod at the helm, the vampires would find it difficult to expand their territory so rapidly. After hearing her daughter's story, the mother, Isabella, was deeply moved. Besides feeling sorry for her daughter, she also felt much less resentful towards Fang Hao. This story is far more exciting than any stage play. He's a transmigrators? How good are they? Isabella looked at her face from side to side, quite satisfied with the effect of the cosmetics. "You haven't heard of the name Fang Hao?" Lorana asked in return. Isabella looked curiously at her daughter in the mirror. "Is he famous? Doesn't Eternal Night City support transmigrators?" Lorana continued to ask. "Leave all of this to the staff below. What's wrong?" Lorana frowned and thought for a moment, then said, "He's number one among the transmigrators, so he should be the most skilled." First, Isabella frowned as well. Who awarded him the title of number one? Oh dear, they have their own ranking system. They don't need anyone to bestow titles. It's hard to explain to you. Lorana seemed to think she couldn't explain it to you. Isabella also smiled slightly. Just as I was about to speak, there was a soft knock on the door. "Madam, miss, the list has been compiled. Come in." The door opened, and a servant brought in a list. After bowing again, he withdrew and gently closed the door. Isabella picked up the list and glanced at it. A look of surprise still lingered in his eyes. "Wow, a $10 million Warfire card. Your husband is really generous." "Huh? So much?" Lorana hadn't expected to prepare so much, but I was still quite happy. After all, it proves that she has good taste, as the men she chose were all excellent. Setting the list aside, Isabella continued. "When are you taking me to see him?" "Don't worry, I won't do anything to him." Lorana thought for a moment and said, "Let's wait a few days, until I meet the rest of my family." Good. This morning, Fang Hao did not immediately go to the ship. They continued sailing along the route, and the sea creatures following at a distance dared not approach. With the ancient blood god servant and his crew of heroes on board, there's no way anything could go wrong. Therefore, Fang Hao doesn't need to be on the boat all the time. Even if he were there, If things really came to a point where they couldn't win, they still wouldn't be able to win. Early in the morning, after breakfast, Fang Hao then took Jia directly to Merchant Alliance headquarters. Instead of wandering the streets, I bought some food for Jia and headed straight to the Southland Lizardman store. Upon entering the shop, a waiting staff member led me upstairs to the second floor. The room was decorated in a luxurious style. Lizard folk queen sat at the table, which was set with fruit and tea. "Shall we chat, or take a look at those weapons?" the queen asked. "Let's look at the weapon first," Fang Hao replied. The queen glanced to the side. The attendant nodded and immediately left the room. When I returned, several people came in behind me carrying several types of weapon equipment. "These are some of our more useful weapons and equipment. Please see which ones you need," the queen said. "There are 4 types of weapons that are sent to us. The first 2 are arrows. Cold lizard arrow, purple. Description: the royal guards are always equipped with arrows that can easily pierce through enemy scales and inflict effective damage." Oops. Fang Hao was taken aback when he saw the first one. Purple arrows. The territory currently uses green iron arrows. The reason for not switching is that they don't have blueprints and are cheaper to manufacture. The main reason is the use of rifles. Transmigrators can be considered to be guns, which are more powerful than arrows. Moreover, the tactic of territorial warfare is a tactic of overwhelming numbers. If one person throws a stone and 1,000,000 people throw stones together, even if you're made of iron, you'll be crushed to death. Therefore, high-level arrows have never received much attention. But he vividly remembered the last time when bullets couldn't penetrate the dragon's scales. "Now look at this purple arrow. It can pierce through the enemy's scales. I wondered if we should replace the arrows." Having this idea, Fang Hao didn't rush to make a decision. Let's move on to the second one. The second one is similar to a regular iron arrow. At the top, a cylindrical tube is attached. It looks a bit like a giant rocket. Smoke arrow, green. Category: arrows. Effect: releases a large area of irritating smoke that can obscure vision and cause physical discomfort to living beings. Description: arrows made of special irritating materials that, under certain circumstances, can produce a smoke effect. Fang Hao looked at the description of the arrows and understood what it meant. To put it simply, it's a smoke bomb attached to an arrow. No, it should be a smoke canister. The materials are collected in the swamp, ground into powder, and sealed inside. When released, the red smoke can cover a large area. The queen explained elegantly as she sipped her tea. "What effect?" The queen thought for a moment and said, "It's quite serious. Soldiers can't distinguish directions within the smoke range, and the smell in the smoke will also render them basically unable to fight. Heroes are also affected to some extent, but the higher the rank, the less affected they are." Fang Hao picked it up, looked at it, and then carefully put it back. Then he asked, "Can't we use poison instead? Are you crazy? What if you poison your own people?" The queen exclaimed in surprise. Smoke is easily affected in this world. The simplest example is a dragon flapping its wings or a mage casting a whirlwind spell. It had just exploded, affecting the enemy, when a gentle breeze came from the other side. The smoke then spread to their side. The reason we dare not use poison gas is not only because it is difficult to produce, but also to protect our own people. Can you customize it? I want something highly poisonous, or something that can knock someone unconscious." Fang Hao continued. "Aren't you afraid of harming your own taxi driver?" He stopped abruptly halfway through his sentence. Fang Hao's territory is inhabited by the undead. As long as I'm safe, I'm not worried about whether the soldier will be poisoned. The queen took a sip of tea and then said, "I'll go back and ask if we can increase the effect of the smoke." Fang Hao looked at it carefully again and suddenly thought of something. He continued, "You wouldn't want to make these arrows so that they shoot into the sky when lit, would you?" The queen was startled. "You knew about this too?" "Goodness, it seems this is the weapon that transmigrators proposed to Lizard Man. A primitive rocket looks like this. In ancient China, there was another type called a swarm of bees, which was similar to this. It is a type of machine, and it's not only capable of soaring into the sky, it's powerful enough to hit anywhere. It seems the Lizard Man wasn't good at firing, so he modified his weapon to use a crossbow. I have someone here who is skilled in gunpowder. Why don't we cooperate, improve it, and develop it together?" Fang Hao continued. The queen glanced at him, then calmly picked up her teacup and took a sip. "I'll go back and discuss it, and I'll give you an answer tomorrow." Fang Hao nodded and continued to examine the third item. B-web arrow, blue. Category: crossbow. Effect: after being fired, it unfolds into a giant net to bind the target. Description: a special weapon developed by Lizard Man that can trap a target inside its mouth. For it, this is a type of crossbow bolt that spreads into a giant net as it flies through the air. If you cover the target, it won't be able to spread its wings and will fall from the sky. But Fang Hao felt that this thing was not very effective against dragons. It was only effective against eagle-type units, and wyvern units were okay. Expecting it to bring down the dragons is wishful thinking. Set aside, Fang Hao continued to examine the last one. This is a model of a crossbow. The queen explained, this is a horned dragon ballista. It's a bit smaller than the dwarf ballista and can be mounted on large beasts. In your words, it's a mobile turret. Fang Hao picked it up and looked at it. What quality is it? Purple. Similar to the dwarves' anti-aircraft equipment, there is no need to replace the crossbow. There were no large wild animals to carry the equipment. Put everything back. He sat down at the table again. He said, I'll order 100,000 of the first type, the cold lizard arrows, and I think we can cooperate to develop the planned effects for the second type, the beacon smoke arrows. The queen ordered all the weapons to be taken away, nodded and said, all right, I'll have the arrows produced immediately. As for the cooperation, I need to discuss it further. I can't make the decision on my own. Yes, thank you very much, Your Majesty, Fang Hao said with a smile. I can provide you with the items, but you should also keep that in mind. Don't provoke those crazy dragons. Getting entangled with them will drive you crazy, let alone ensure stable development. The queen brought up the matter again. Fang Hao nodded. There's nothing I can do. They're keeping an eye on me, and now I can't escape them even if I want to. All right, what do you humans like to eat? After the city is gone, come to my place. Thanks. I feel like I can hold on a little longer. After chatting with the queen for a while in the shop, I got up to say goodbye. I just left the store. A figure came rushing over from not far away. It is little Succubus, who is wearing a black leather jacket with a heart-shaped cutout at the lower abdomen, revealing her skin. It seems like they were already waiting for him over there. Huff, huff, little Succubus said after catching his breath. Sir, the shopkeeper wants to see you. She says she has something important to discuss. Upon seeing little Succubus running over, Fang Hao remembered that the dwarven craftsman had reminded him that the people of Succubus Hut had inquired about him. But thinking about it, I haven't had much contact with succubi. Why do I feel like the other person is very interested in me? I don't have much energy myself. Is there something you need from the boss lady? Actually, I have some things to take care of here, Fang Hao said, looking like he was about to leave. Little Succubus said, I don't know the specifics, but the shop owner rarely sees outsiders, so it must be something very important. As a succubus leader, of course she should avoid seeing people. After thinking about it, he agreed. Then lead the way. Succubus Hut. Inside the room, a faint fragrance wafted in the air. Fang Hao looked at the succubus leader opposite him, who was somewhat languid yet incredibly alluring, and said with a smile, Miss Yezebeth, we meet again. Huh. The demon lord yawned, leaning back slightly, his clothes taut, outlining a perfect curve. In this world, appearance and physique often change with social status. The higher the rank, the better the muscle ratio in the body, and they may even grow taller. Of course, there are exceptions. The wretched ogre leader I encountered before didn't quite fit human aesthetics. The boss looked like a pile of fat meat lying there, and it was disgusting to look at. However, this is a minority. According to racial aesthetics, most high-ranking heroes rarely encounter ugly people. No rush, the demon lord said with a smile, resting his chin on one arm. Little Succubus set up the table with drinks and various dishes. Soon, the entire table was filled with food. These are all the restaurant's famous dishes. After everything is finished, little Succubus will exit. The demon lord then said, try it. The food here is always very good. Fang Hao didn't move, and Njia sat quietly to the side. When it's necessary to protect Fang Hao, Njia won't eat random things, especially since the other party's purpose is still unclear. Thank you, Miss Yezebeth. Please speak freely. Fang Hao also had important matters to attend to and did not have time to eat and drink with her here. Moreover, the other person clearly seemed to be in trouble, so he didn't dare to eat. The demon lord smiled faintly, his tail swaying gently to the side, and said, Mr. Fang Hao, do you also have a shop in Merchant Alliance? There's one at a branch. There's no point in hiding anything about the shops. What do you mainly sell? The succubus continued to ask. Mainly weaponry, but also some tools and equipment, quite a variety. He looked at her. Ms. Yezebeth, are you interested in collaborating? The demon lord looked at him seriously, then nodded and said, Of course, but I don't know what use my succubus hut can have. Well, that's true. Fang Hao didn't know what he could buy at the succubus hut either. After all, there aren't many succubi, and they don't need to fight here. If he doesn't need weapon equipment, what can he sell? Tableware, tables and chairs. How much can this shop use? 100 or 80 warfire coins are enough. Who knows? Maybe you'll invite me over for a visit, and we can see if there's anything we can work on together. With that, she ran her slender, white fingers across the back of his hand. Despite teasing Fang Hao, a blush rose on her face. She gives off an impression of being cautious and shy. Fang Hao frowned, looking at the other person with wariness. She wanted to go to her own territory. It should be noted that the only people currently interested in the location of his territory are the dragons. To find out their location? That shouldn't be the case if they really wanted to help the dragons. As long as he informs the dragons about his presence in the alliance, the people waiting for him outside the Lizard Man store will not be succubi, but members of the dragon clan. Moreover, I wouldn't be foolish enough to bring it up at this time. What's going on? Are you interested in my territory? Fang Hao looked directly into her eyes. The demon lord held his wine cup, took a sip, licked his red lips, and said, "Interested. I'm also interested in you. Would you invite me to come and see? Aren't you afraid that if you go there, I'll have you detained? What's there to be afraid of? I'm quite confident in my abilities," the demon lord continued. Upon hearing this, Fang Hao smiled. Yezebeth, Orange, 8th Order. In this world, he can already be considered a top-tier expert. In any faction, he would be a leader, especially for transmigrators. It's simply impossible to do anything about an Orange 8th Order transmigrator. But in terms of the territory at this time, an Orange Tier 8 is only average, not counting Lorana. There are 4 Tier 10 companies. Beating you up is easy enough, but there was no need to say any of this. Fang Hao smiled and said, "After a while, I'll invite Miss Yezebeth to come over for a visit. Our clothing and cosmetics are quite suitable for you." "All right, then I'll wait for Mr. Fang Hao's news. Don't keep me waiting too long." The demon lord smiled again, leaning forward to reveal a large expanse of his chest. Fang Hao nodded. "Okay, then I'll head back first. There are still some things to take care of in the territory." After saying that, he got up with Njia and prepared to leave. The demon lord was taken aback and glanced at the table full of food and wine. "You're leaving without even touching a bite." But he didn't stop me. Instead, he said, "As a return gift for your visit, I'll let you in on a piece of news." Fang Hao, who was about to open the door, paused. The voice behind them continued. "With a powerful force stepping in, Merchant Alliance may find it difficult to hold on any longer." Holy crap, this is clearly referring to the Dragon Clan forcing the alliance. This means that a powerful force has stepped in on behalf of the dragons to put pressure on the Merchant Alliance. Merchant Alliance is now backing down. The demon lord knew about this. To say that entering a dream doesn't involve gathering information about a person is something I would never believe, even if you beat me to death. "Okay, thank you." Fang Hao didn't ask who the powerful force was, and turned to leave the room. It doesn't matter who it is. If you can withstand the dragon race, then it doesn't matter who the opponent is. If we can't stop it, it doesn't matter who it is anymore. Return to Lord's Manor. As soon as I entered the backyard, I saw Yer and Xiao Bai sitting on either side of the stone table under the tree. While peeling dried fruit for Red General, they chatted quietly. "Didn't you go to training today? You're going to be surpassed by them in rank," Fang Hao said with a forced smile. Hearing the information given by the demon lord added a lot of pressure to his mind. The dragons are incredibly powerful, and even now, he wasn't sure if he could withstand them. So, I felt a bit depressed. The two women exchanged a glance, and Yer spoke softly. "Today, Rabbit People Village and Fox People Village came looking for us." "Oh, is there something you need?" Fang Hao sat down beside him. "Rabbit People Village. I'd like to ask if the main city is short-handed enough to bring in some servants for daily tasks," Yer said softly. The village chief of Fox People Village asked the same question, so the two families must have discussed it beforehand, Xiao Bai added from the side. After saying that, the two of them looked at Fang Hao at the same time. Now, maids train every day, so they don't really do much of their daily work. In addition, the city's territory continues to expand. Hiring some servants would be a good idea. Let's wait a while. There are a lot going on in the territory right now, Fang Hao said. The two nodded. Okay. In the afternoon, Fang Hao remained in Lord's Hall. He pondered what aspects he could pay attention to in order to strengthen the defenses of the main city should the dragons attack. Lost in thought, he opened the Lord's book and started flipping through it casually. Within the World Channel. How barbaric. An indigenous friend of mine took me to a brothel. As soon as we entered, there were people in the hall, at the tables, all of them white and fluffy, selling purple short sword, price to be paid via private message, no troll equipment. Looking for a detailed map of the area around Coldwind Hammer. If anyone has a map of it, please contact me. The complete collection of existing records in the library reveals the secrets of the divine realm and is now available for purchase in the personal shop. Is that guy from the brothel still around? Which city is he in? Do you have a photo? Messages flashed by rapidly. Most of the time, it's just exchanging various props and equipment. However, Fang Hao's attention was drawn to the information about the secret of the divine realm. The last time they visited the divine realm, it left a deep impression on the transmigrators. Even the space where the gods lived was filled with the aura of death. The warriors who served and guarded the temple also became neither human nor undead. I clicked on this person's profile picture and entered their personal shop. Fang Hao recognized the person immediately. He vaguely remembered this person. He had mentioned before that he had copied many magic books in the library. Fang Hao also bought a handwritten copy, but after studying it for several days, he still didn't get any results. I'm not sure if there's a problem with the handwritten copy, or if I simply didn't learn it at all. This handwritten copy is still lying on the bookshelf. In this person's shop, sure enough, there was a piece of paper with the title Divine Realm Decryption, which was also handwritten. Fang Hao thought for a moment, then muttered, "I'll trust you one more time." So I took a picture of these pages. There were only 3 pages in my hand. The text above is handwritten, and it really does look like it was copied from some book. And the first sentence on the paper, they were as ancient as legend, towering giants, leaving behind crumbling stone foundations and dilapidated statues. Fang Hao frowned and began to read it seriously. There isn't much content. Most of them are still various names of people and places. Where and where was it found? What kind of ruins were discovered? What customs and other inscriptions were recorded on them? It looks like an archaeological record, but through these few words and phrases, Fang Hao was able to glean some insights. In a time that is not recorded, this continent was inhabited by towering giants who had their own empire and beliefs. These giants possessed well-established social systems and professions, officials, craftsmen, poets, or soldiers, not so different from normal human systems. There are also some records of the types of giants. There are storm, water, fire, stone, hill, and other types of giants. Each species, which can be considered a race, has its own corresponding beliefs and worships its own gods. The giant god realm is another name, called the giant god empire. Unlike the strange and wonderful gods of today, in that era, giants were the main deities. All the gods are giants, meaning they are one family. We live together in one divine kingdom. The empire of gods also has leaders to govern these gods. It's somewhat like Mount Olympus, where Zeus lived in Western movies, and all the gods lived in the same place. Therefore, it is called the empire of gods. Good heavens, an empire of gods. Are gods as common as cabbages? I don't know if my guess is correct. An empire cannot be formed by just a few people, can it? It will take at least a lot of people. Of course, this empire of gods is just what archaeologists say, and it's hard to say whether there are any errors. Following that are some scholars' conjectures. Some say that the living beings currently existing on the mainland are all former slaves of giants. Some people believe that the giants and living beings in some of the surviving murals look very similar. It is a giant that has degenerated. In short, there are all sorts of opinions, but they are all speculations based on some traces of ruins, and no one can produce any substantial evidence. But the only thing that is clear is that giants truly existed on this continent. The era must be much longer, so long ago that it has become a legend. After reading all the pages, I closed the book and put it aside. After reading it, I didn't resolve any of my doubts. Instead, I felt even more confused. These kinds of divine matters have nothing to do with them. Transmigrators should prioritize their own safety, ensuring they are well-fed and clothed. God is too far away. Time flies, and another 3 days have passed. The wind howled at sea, and waves splashed up, washing over the deck. Looking southeast, the outline of an island can be seen in the distance. Splash! The sound of chains scraping together rang out. Below the cabin, transmigrators, their hands and feet in shackles, were led onto the deck by the undead. The man was around 30 years old. His clothes were soaking wet, and his face was deathly pale. He looked like he was about to die. I saw Fang Hao standing on the deck, surrounded by a group of heroes. He bowed respectfully and said, "I am Yu Suker Sakota. Are you Mr. Fang Hao?" Fang Hao was taken aback, not expecting that the unlucky guy he caught along the way knew him. "You said I'm Fang Hao? What? Do I look a lot like him?" Fang Hao also looked at him curiously. "He's a fairly ordinary person. I don't know what Mr. Fang Hao looks like either. The sea creatures sent me here because they believe these undead are Fang Hao's troops," the man continued. "They weren't unlucky guys who got captured. They were sent here by the sea creatures." "Why did the sea creatures send you here?" The man sighed and said, "Those sea creatures, I don't know who told me they were Fang Hao's group, sent me to deliver a message that they hope both sides can negotiate peacefully and don't want to continue fighting." Fang Hao nodded, finding it somewhat amusing. "They even sent over a negotiator. The sea creatures value you quite a bit," Fang Hao said. "No, I committed a crime on the island, and that's the condition they won't kill me." "Aren't you afraid you'll be killed before you even get close?" "I was afraid. I originally planned to jump into the sea to escape, but the sea creatures were pushing the ship from below, so I didn't have a chance," the man said. When a man speaks, she answers honestly, saying whatever comes to mind. They even admitted that they tried to escape, but failed. "What's the name of this island?" Fang Hao asked, turning his gaze back to the island. "Curved Tooth Island." "How many troops are stationed on the island?" "What is the name of the island lord who is defending it?" "What is his rank?" Fang Hao continued to ask. The man thought for a moment, then said, "There are a lot of people on the island now, including sea creatures who are providing support, as well as transmigrators who have been mobilized to assist in the defense. The island's leader is a purple hero named Rodney, but I don't know what he looks like. I only know what I've heard from others. For transmigrators, there is obviously no such thing as a suicide squad." Fang Hao asked questions, and the other party answered them. Even though the information was very vague, there was clearly no intention to hide it. After all, they were forced out by the sea creatures to their deaths, and they couldn't wait to reveal more information to avenge themselves. "Guards, take him away. If he makes any move, execute him on the spot." "Yes." The spirit-binding guard nodded and took the man away again. But the man seemed relieved, thanked him repeatedly, and followed him downstairs. "Sir, we're almost at the island," a soldier shouted. Fang Hao nodded, took out an old lantern from his storage space, and gently blew on it. A burst of crimson fire suddenly blazed up. "All right, prepare for battle," Fang Hao shouted. "Yes." Wanya Island, port. The sky began to darken, and night was fast approaching. But the towering city wall is still filled with a garrison composed of sea creatures and human soldiers. The Sea Tribe Overseer patrolled back and forth on city wall, constantly reprimanding some lax soldiers. However, this reprimand did not have much effect. Negative comments kept coming from all around. "Why are those undead attacking this island? There are so many islands in the archipelago. Why are we so unlucky?" Stop talking. Focus on recovering your strength. Those undead will definitely attack today." "Damn it. I wasn't there when they were enjoying the good life, but they sent me to the front lines on the battlefield." This sound first appeared in transmigrators, but quickly spread across the entire wall. Everyone was talking in hushed tones. The sea creatures were forced to climb city wall and fight a defensive battle. If they can't even defeat the enemy at sea, who would believe they can defend this city once they're on land? Nobody believed it. The sea creatures don't believe it, and the transmigrators don't believe it either. "I'm just waiting to see if there's a chance to find a time to escape." On city wall, Rodney, the sea creature commander, gazed at the undead giant ship from afar. Legend has it that he was raised by sharks in the sea, and a hero who reached the rank of purple at a very young age. At this moment, standing atop the towering city wall, one is observing the giant ships at sea. The transmigrators who were sent out to negotiate did not return. Rodney could also see that this big battle seemed unavoidable. "Pass the word down. Continue to strengthen vigilance tonight to prevent enemy night attacks, and have shifts rest at dawn," Rodney shouted. "The enemy is coming in a fierce attack, and I'm afraid we won't be able to wait much longer. The most likely scenario is that we will launch a direct attack on the city tonight." The messenger went downstairs, and another guard came up. "Sir, some transmigrators are trying to escape. What should we do?" Rodney frowned, considering ordering the deserters to be executed, but fearing that pushing the transmigrators too far would lead to a direct rebellion. After thinking for a moment, he said, "Lock him up first." "Yes." Time passed little by little. The sky grew increasingly dark. The distant sea was completely shrouded in darkness, and the huge ship disappeared into the night. The guards on the city wall began to doze off. One by one, they sat down against the corner of the wall, closed their eyes, and rested. At this moment, the Sea Tribe warlord, having eaten and drunk his fill, came out and saw the crowd with their eyes closed. He immediately roared, "Get up, all of you lazy humans. You dare to sleep while on guard duty. If I see you sleeping again." He abruptly stopped halfway through his cursing. A series of piercing whistling sounds reached my ears, as if something was rapidly approaching in the night. A bad feeling rose in everyone's hearts. "Flare!" someone shouted from afar. From the watchtower, flares roared out with a piercing sound, illuminating the sky. But everyone who saw the situation clearly felt their hands and feet turn cold and their bodies tremble. All that could be seen in the lit night sky was countless dragon-shaped units are approaching this area. It was moving extremely fast and was about to reach the airspace above the port. Ding, ding, ding. The alarm bells suddenly rang, echoing throughout the entire city. The deafening chimes alerted the generals in the city and also startled the crowds who were lost in thought on City Wall. Looking up at the sky again, I was still filled with panic and fear. Dragons. A giant, silvery white dragon. Everyone on City Wall swallowed hard, and their hands, gripping weapon tightly, trembled involuntarily. The dragons flew over with the bone dragon, even if they dare to face the dead. However, when facing the dragons, he felt even less confident. The dragon clan is recognized as the strongest race on the mainland, and no one dares to provoke them, nor is anyone capable of doing so. A sense of despair spread rapidly through the army. Aim the anti-aircraft crossbows. All archers, get ready. Don't just stand there like idiots. Rodney, the sea creature general, quickly climbed City Wall and shouted. Messengers quickly dispersed, shouting commands at the top of their lungs. However, it was too dark, and the dragons were moving too fast. The lights quickly went out in the air, and as night fell again, the dragon's figure disappeared from sight once more. A second round of flares was launched. The dragon's body was already close at hand. Attack! Attack now! Bang, bang, bang! Whoosh, whoosh! Smack, smack! The sounds of ballista bowstrings, arrows being fired, and arrows striking the dragon's body. The sound echoed throughout the entire area. Roar! The breath, silvery white, red, and black, fell like pillars of light from the sky. They swept quickly through the city. Everyone along the way disappeared into the pillar of light amidst painful wails. At this moment, the defenders on City Wall were completely thrown into chaos. Baka, who wants to be cannon fodder for you? You damn sea creatures. Charge out. Staying here will only lead to your death. Those who don't want to be cannon fodder, come with me and charge out. We'll charge out from the south gate. The dragons and hordes of bone dragons brought a terrifying aura. The sea creatures would also obey their general's orders and attempt to reorganize their defenses. But the transmigrators were already in a panic. Let me help you defend the city wall. This can be done as a defense mission or to increase your favorability with the city lord. But there's absolutely no way I'd stay here and die with you. Seeing that the sea creatures themselves were in chaos, the transmigrators began to squeeze directly down from City Wall. Stop them. Anyone who dares to leave with troops will be executed on the spot. Rodney shouted as he climbed City Wall. Sea creatures immediately rushed to stop them. At this point, the transmigrators only thought that staying there would mean certain death. The two sides started fighting as soon as they met. In the air, groups of bone dragons circled endlessly. The city was also engulfed in fierce fighting. Splash! Outside the city wall, the sound of screeching friction could be heard again. The undead have begun their siege. Rodney immediately looked down. His pupils suddenly contracted. Beneath City Wall, countless undead warriors marched ashore along the coast. They didn't swim. Instead, they marched up the seabed in orderly steps. Once ashore, the skeletons launched their attack. Once you reach the foot of the city, climb up City Wall. Damn it, Rodney cursed. A giant dragon, the bone dragon, hovered overhead, and with each rotation, it breathed out streams of dragon breath towards the area where people were gathered below. The sea creature soldiers were unable to gather together and form an effective defense. They could only hide while following orders. Meanwhile, the transmigrators below launched a frenzied counterattack. Unable to defeat the dragons, they engaged in battle with the sea creatures that were blocking their way. The scene was chaotic. Let those transmigrators go. Everyone get onto City Wall and reorganize the defenses. Rodney was giving the order. Suddenly, a fiery spear from Crimson shot out from below. What is it? Rodney instinctively tilted his head. The flaming spear, burning hot, brushing past him. Reorganize. Rodney was about to continue speaking. He then saw his personal guards beside him looking back at him with terrified expressions. My heart tightened, and I immediately dodged to the side. But it was all too late. Thump! Under the watchful eyes of all the sea creatures, a mace slammed into Rodney's temple with overwhelming force. Click! The sound of bones shattering was exceptionally clear. Rodney's neck twisted and deformed to one side under the force of gravity, and then his body flew off to the side. With a loud bang, it crashed onto the stone building on one side, shattering the walls like a cannonball and sending up clouds of dust. All the sea creatures and transmigrators were dumbfounded. His eyes widened, his face filled with disbelief. How did this black armored warrior appear? Moreover, the 8th-tier Purple Island Lord, just like that, gone? The collapsed wall is still littered with rubble and dust. Everyone was looking this way, but Rodney never emerged from the ruins. Dead. The strongest person on this island was killed in just one encounter? The situation unfolded too quickly. It was almost unbearable to accept. The transmigrators below the city cursed inwardly at these stupid sea creatures for provoking such an enemy. He then rushed out even more frantically. Anyone who blocks their escape route will be swarmed forward and hacked wildly with their weapons. They had an attitude of being invincible and unstoppable. The city walls on both sides. Several seafolk heroes and generals began to take command of the scattered troops and rebuild the defenses. And just then, whoosh whoosh, 3 more flaming spears shot up city wall, transforming into 3 identical black armored warriors standing atop city wall. The sea creature soldier, attempting to scale city wall, suddenly halted its advance. Filled with fear, they retreated little by little. They retreated back to the city walls. Charge! Charge forward, and he'll be there. Call! With a whooshing sound, the black armored warrior pushed off with his feet and instantly appeared beside the general. A hammer blow came down in a straight line. Bang! The immense force caused his body to hunch over. Half of his body disappeared, and his internal organs were clearly visible in his chest cavity. He's dead. Another instant kill. That's incredible. This time, no one dared to move forward. He cautiously watched the enemy above, retreating little by little to create distance. The 4 black armored warriors did not kill the remaining soldiers, or rather, they did not have to die as long as they did not attract their attention. The 4 men walked down city wall, and each stood in front of a city gate, blocking the way out. Everyone was startled again. What does this mean? They won't let people leave? Is this like trying to suffocate them all in the city? The transmigrators that failed to break through were even more annoyed. If it weren't for these sea creatures causing trouble, they would have all escaped. And so I hesitated. On the city wall, the skeleton soldiers, their eyes gleaming red, surged towards the city like waves. Call! A magnificent, silvery white dragon descended from the sky. She transforms into a silver-haired girl, strolling slowly through the city. A crisp voice rang out. Those who don't want to die should throw away their weapons. At least that will save your lives. The situation is now quite clear. Large numbers of undead have crossed the city wall, and more skeleton warriors are continuously pouring into the city. The city gate was blocked by 4 men in black armor. They didn't even have a chance to escape. Clang, clang. The surviving sea creatures, the soldiers, looked at each other and then put down their weapons. Respected Dragon Clan, we are willing to submit. Please keep your promise and do not make things difficult for us. There are still many women and children in the city. Please, Miss Dragon, do not harm them. Long live the Dragon Clan. The crowd threw away their weapons and lay prostrate on the ground, with shouts of "Long live the dragons," gradually unifying the slogan. The shout made Baiate's face turn red. I wanted to explain that this had nothing to do with the dragon race, but I didn't know how to start. She could only quicken her pace to complete the task Fang Hao had given her. Sure enough, those who threw away the weapon were not attacked by the undead. In some places, the sounds of fighting can still be heard, but the sounds of battle didn't last long, and the city fell into an inexplicable silence. The surrendered sea creatures and the transmigrators were all placed under guard. Although the shackles on his body were heavy, at least he didn't become a corpse. On the giant ship, with a whooshing sound, a large net bag filled with Lord's books and 2 figures were thrown down. It crashed onto the deck with a loud thud. Then, the silver-white dragon transformed into a silver-haired girl and landed, saying, "This is the Lord's book you requested." A group of dwarves was also found in the city, and I brought 2 of them with me. Fang Hao nodded, indicating that he understood. Meanwhile, The dwarf, who had been thrown around and was completely disoriented, stood up unsteadily. Upon seeing the human in front of him, his expression became quite interesting. The one commanding the undead and dragons was actually a human who looked quite young. What's wrong with this world? Before Fang Hao could speak, one of the dwarves said, "Sir, we are not from the Sea Tribe and have no intention of getting involved in this matter." Yes, you are wise. Please don't implicate us," the two dwarfs hurriedly said. They witnessed the battle firsthand. This army simply overwhelmed the Sea Tribe's port with a domineering offensive. Even though the transmigrators caused some internal chaos, the siege only lasted a few hours. This is hardly a siege. Climbing a mountain might not be much faster. Therefore, even though dwarves have fiery tempers, they dare not provoke such people. One wrong move, and you could lose your head. Fang Hao looked at the dwarf in front of him. "What are you doing here with the sea creatures? Think carefully before you speak, because liars never have a good ending." Upon hearing the other's words, both dwarves shuddered. That's absolutely terrifying. They were just there to do some maintenance work. How did they run into this? One of them said, "The sea creatures recently ordered a lot of city defense equipment from us. We were responsible for helping with the installation and debugging, but we didn't expect you to." Did the dwarves order city defense equipment? But during the battle just now, he watched from a distance for a while and didn't seem to notice anything special. Seeing that the humans in front of them did not speak, the two dwarves felt another tremor in their hearts. He immediately added, "Among the ordered equipment, there are more anti-aircraft devices, which are distributed on the various islands to the north." Fang Hao nodded. "So, you all know the locations now?" Yes. As long as you don't kill us, we will not hide anything," the dwarf immediately assured him. I don't know if they were truly terrified or simply unwilling to die for the sea creature's mess. The dwarf didn't argue. In fact, he seemed quite willing to cooperate. "Bring me a map of the archipelago," Fang Hao shouted. Immediately, someone brought over a map of the archipelago. Fang Hao handed the map and pen to the dwarf, saying, "Mark which cities should have the most important siege equipment deployed." Well, the night was deep and gloomy. The sea creature's palace remained brightly lit. Aquaman Saintsbury sits on his throne, clad in golden armor and wielding a golden trident. Although the sea creatures couldn't destroy the giant ship, they kept track of its movements. Upon learning that an attack had been launched on Crescent Island, the Sea King and his ministers waited for news in the palace. They've done everything they could, purchased equipment, mustered troops. Aquaman knew that this first battle was extremely important. War is not just about who kills more people, but also includes many other factors such as politics, public sentiment, and morale. If we can hold the first battle, the subsequent defense and troop movements will be much easier. If we can't hold the line, the subsequent defense will be even more difficult. People will be in a state of panic, and morale will not be high. Therefore, when news came from Wanya Island that the enemy had begun their attack, he then paid extra attention to it. Swish, swish, swish. The guards quickly entered the main hall. His gaze swept over the ministers on both sides. Then, he went to the middle of the hall and hurriedly said, "Your Majesty, there is news from Crescent Island." Everyone was shocked. So fast. When this person came in, everyone thought that the midnight snack had been prepared. It turns out it's about Crescent Island. "Speak," Neptune said solemnly, his grip on the trident tightening involuntarily. Zhao guards swallowed hard, then said, "The port of Bent Tooth has been breached, and the island lord is dead." "What? You dare to lie about military intelligence?" Aquaman stood up instantly, roaring angrily. "That's impossible, because time flies too fast. Tens of thousands of soldiers were stationed in the city. Even if it's tens of thousands of pigs, they'll still have to be caught for a while. How is this possible? The city has fallen so quickly." "Your Majesty, news from the communicating conch shell on Crescent Island indicates that the port has fallen, and the enemy's forces far outnumber the defending troops," Zhao guards reported again. Aquaman sat down again, but his eyes now showed frustration and helplessness. Who exactly are these people? How did they manage to conquer a city so quickly? Or perhaps it was their meticulous planning, specifically targeting cities attacked from the sea. "Your Majesty, we should notify the remaining islands as soon as possible to increase their defenses. The enemy's strength exceeds our capabilities. We should re-establish diplomacy and resolve the issue peacefully." "Diplomacy? How can we conduct diplomacy? We don't even know who the other party is." A murmur of discussion erupted instantly, turning the once quiet hall into chaos. Neptune slammed his chair twice and said, "First, Notify the surrounding islands to strengthen their defenses, continue to observe the enemy's movements, and immediately send envoys to nearby islands for negotiations. Can devour 81 Lord's books. The collected Lord's books transformed into a beam of light and directly merged into Fang Hao's Lord's books. You gain decision-making power over 81 subordinate territories, occupied/abandoned. Fang Hao devoured the Lord's book, and a large force transported all the valuable goods in the port onto the giant ship. Meanwhile, a large number of undead are also reinforcing the defenses of the surrounding city wall to prevent the sea creatures from suddenly attacking at this time. Tap, tap, tap. Footsteps sounded. The two dwarves from before were brought over again. My lord, we have finished marking the map, the dwarf said. The map was handed to Fang Hao, who examined it closely and saw circles marked on it. This indicates an area where defensive equipment has been added. In fact, these devices do not pose a significant threat to Fang Hao's side. The current Fang Hao is no longer the company that simply relied on sheer numbers. With heroes under his command of high rank, conquering a power like the Sea Clan is not a difficult task. What's the name of this island? Fang Hao pointed to an island. The dwarf looked around and said, Yuxiang Island. This island is called Yuxiang Island because it has a large number of swallow needle rays. The Haizu Islands are shaped like a lotus flower. The outermost layer consists of 24 islands. The second layer has 6 islands, and the core is the political center of the sea tribe, Rainbow Pearl Island. Now that Fang Hao has captured Wanya Island, the next step is to attack the islands on the second level. Only after the sea route is secured can we attack Rainbow Pearl Island. Fang Hao nodded and ordered those below. Speed up the finishing touches and continue the attack on Yuxiang Island after that. Yes, the city bustled with activity once more, and everyone sped up their looting. Soon after, arrangements were made for Soldier to remain on duty. The giant ship passed through the port of Curved Tooth Island and entered the second layer of the archipelago. Continue the attack inward. After occupying the port of Benjamin, the sea creatures followed the giant ship even closer. Scouts from the sea tribe would always be following the giant ship from a distance. It's been drizzling these past few days. The incessant drizzle made the entire ship even more damp. When the giant ship is traveling normally along its route, Fang Hao usually doesn't stay on board, since the teleportation light screen is bound to the sea vessel. Coming and going is naturally convenient. Normally, he would live and eat in the main city with the living beings' heroes, and occasionally come to the giant ship to take a look, to avoid any problems. Today, Fang Hao brought a few people over. The sea was rough and the rain was quite heavy. Fang Hao felt that nothing was wrong and was about to leave with his people when, suddenly, a spirit-binding guard entered and said, Sir, an enemy has appeared on the sea. She claims to be a member of the sea race and wants to speak with you. People have appeared on the sea. Are they sea creatures that swam over? Fang Hao asked curiously. There seems to be something vague in this sentence. What does it mean when people appear on the sea? No, it's just standing on the sea, spirit-binding guard continued. Fang Hao nodded, not taking it too seriously. They released a demon puppet and carried Dimitrika out of the building. Following the spirit-binding guard, we arrived at one side of the deck. The raindrops pattered against my body. It made my vision a little blurry. Standing on the railing of the ship, I saw a figure standing on the sea. Her dress fluttered, giving her an ethereal air. It really is standing on the sea. Sea Spirit Witch, Yuna, purple rank 9. Look closely. This person was not of sea creature appearance, but rather resembled a human woman. Her skin was translucent, like white jelly, and her long hair reached her waist. She wore a white robe that, although tinged with blue, did not appear to be made of cloth, but rather like jelly. The raindrops hit her body as if falling into a lake, creating slight ripples that were then absorbed. Water Element, a high-level water elemental hero. Fang Hao looked at the other person with some surprise. Elements are divided into 2 types. Wild elements formed by the special environment of heaven and earth, and various elemental spirits. The second type is a summon creature, created using the mage's magic power, which disappears when its time is up. Only the first type of wild elemental unit was able to survive. It is extremely difficult for these elemental units to develop intelligence, and becoming a hero is even more difficult, requiring very demanding conditions. Before me is a purple, tier 9th level water element hero, who seems poised to advance to orange. Thinking about it carefully, it's not surprising that water element heroes would appear on this vast ocean. Greetings, Your Excellency. The water elemental stood on the sea, bowing respectfully as he greeted the master. The voice was very soft. Fang Hao nodded. Yes, you're here to negotiate on behalf of the sea tribe? The water element stood up straight. Yes, to be honest, sir, I am the owner of Yuxiang Island. I am here today to ask for your mercy and to resolve this war peacefully. Normally, elements do not have gender. Water and fire are not distinguished by gender. Perhaps it was because women were thought to be less threatening that the element of water was transformed into a female image. It's also possible that she usually presents herself as a woman. Fang Hao glanced at her and said softly, "This is war. It won't end so easily with just a few words. War, especially war of power, is a very complex matter. That's right. If I get bullied today, it's not as simple as just fighting back. There are many things to consider and many things to involve. Similarly, once a war begins, it is not easy to end it. People on both sides have died. If you want it to end, it's not something you can just end with an apology. Would the dominant party agree? So many people have died, and the hatred between them has run deep. Stopping now is just giving the enemy time to recover. When the other side has recovered and its forces are strong, they will turn around and attack you. Therefore, the stronger side in any war will not easily back down. Then, sir, please state your terms. Is it reparations or something else? As long as this war can be stopped, the sea creatures are willing to consider any conditions. The water elemental pondered for a moment before continuing. She was wise enough not to argue about the merits of starting the war. It doesn't matter who is right or wrong, especially since the sea creatures have indeed gone too far recently, making many enemies. Fang Hao thought for a moment. Would you agree to let the entire archipelago become my subordinate territory? The water elemental, Water Blue, looked at him. My lord, are you joking? You can't make the decision? The sea creatures occupy the Rainbow Islands. Although they are divided into islands, the area is quite large. It would be difficult for your ship to conquer each island one by one and then divide your forces to garrison them. It would be better to ask for some compensation, which would be more suitable for future development, the water element analyst said. Fang Hao was taken aback, feeling that this water element was quite intelligent. What she meant was that Fang Hao now has a large fleet and many soldiers. But if one detachment is stationed there, the troop strength will be limited, and even if you were given the troops, you wouldn't be able to hold them off. It would be better to ask for some money and then recruit soldiers. That's not how it works. Supporting some local sea creatures won't waste too many troops, Fang Hao said with a smile. Before the water elemental could speak, Fang Hao countered. On the contrary, what are your plans now that I'm about to attack Yuxiang Island? The water element is clearly silent. The facial features, composed of various elements, remained unchanged, yet it was clear that the other person was somewhat anxious. The island is well prepared. Even if you want to attack, it won't be easy, the water elemental said. Oh, so confident. Fang Hao's smile faded, and he stared at her. The water elemental paused for a moment, then immediately said, "Of course I don't want to go to war with you, sir, and I hope you can spare us and avoid the war that is about to begin. Open the city gates, cede this island, and you will remain the island's owner. I will help you upgrade to Orange Hero." Fang Hao continued. The war has dragged on to this point, and even giant ships have arrived. It's clearly impossible not to fight now. But if the other side surrenders, Fang Hao will not make things difficult for them. I cannot agree to that, the water element said. Then there's nothing to talk about. Once a war starts, it won't end. You can go back and prepare, Fang Hao said directly. Seeing the other party's resolute attitude, the water element knew that there was nothing it could do to change anything. He could only nod. All right, I will convey your attitude to the sea tribe, but I also hope that you will consider my suggestion. The sea tribe will offer generous compensation to make up for your losses. Fang Hao waved his hand. The water element shook its head helplessly, and with a splash, turned into a puddle of water that scattered into the sea. Why not just kill her? She's the island's owner. If she dies, the island will fall. And Jia asked from the side. Fang Hao had thought the same thing. But since the opponent dared to do this, and is a water elemental, they must have a way to save their life. If you can't kill your opponent, you'll only make yourself look cunning. Forget it. Taking this city shouldn't be a problem at all. From the day the negotiations with the water element failed, the surrounding sea creatures began to become less quiet. They faced attacks of all sizes every day, but Fang Hao had ample troops, and his various attacks yielded no results. Instead, a large number of corpses were left behind, which were transformed into undead and became part of the guards of the giant ship. Sir, we can see Yuxiang Island now. Today, the dark clouds have dispersed slightly, and an island has appeared in the distance. Fang Hao nodded. It was finally time to attack. Once Yuxiang Island is captured, we can directly attack the main island of the Sea Tribe. He raised his arm, just about to give the order to prepare for the attack. From the storage space, the sound of communicating conch shell could be heard. He was about to say something, but he swallowed it back and took out the communicating conch shell with a puzzled look. There was a small label attached to the conch shell. 1. It is the conch shell that connects the main city and Yer. He held it to his ear and immediately heard Yer's voice. Master, Mr. Kuktitor from Merchant Alliance has arrived. He says he has something important to discuss with you, and that he must come back. Kuktitor is Merchant Alliance, the person in charge of outpost number 032. The two sides have a good relationship and can be considered friends based on mutual interests. It seems there really is something urgent. After putting away the communicating conch shell, Fang Hao continued. You guys continue organizing the manpower. I need to go back to the main city. Yes, sir. Fang Hao nodded. Dimitrika and Jia, you two come back with me. Release the teleportation light screen, and it will disappear from the spot. Fang Hao chose to appear in the city square to avoid being seen by the goblins. He stepped out of the light curtain and led the two towards Lord's Manor. Upon entering the hall, one sees the goblin Kuktitor sitting in a chair, his face full of anxiety and unease. Kuktitor, what's wrong? Is the shop on fire? Why are you in such a hurry to call me back? Fang Hao said. Oh no. Fang Hao, it's all over, it's all over. The goblin jumped off the chair and rushed over anxiously, slapping Fang Hao twice on the waist. What's over? Who's over? Fang Hao frowned. Who else could it be? You're finished. The goblin slapped the ground twice more and said, The dragons are coming to kill you. What? Fang Hao was startled. Then, he quickly repeated Kuktitor. The dragons pressured the Merchant Alliance, demanding intelligence and information about Fang Hao. Merchant Alliance, citing its neutrality, has refrained from disclosing any information for several months. This time, with two elders from the Dragon Clan and the elves standing up for them, they finally succumbed to the pressure and informed the Dragon Clan of the information. Upon hearing the news, Kuktitor was also quite frightened. He rushed over immediately and informed Fang Hao of the matter. Dragon Peak Mountain, Mountain Peak Hall. In the cave filled with gold coins, a giant golden vertical pupil slowly opened. Gold coins tumbled down with a clatter. Any news? A voice asked from beneath the gold coin. Outside the cave stood two dragon elders. One of them spoke up, saying, The Merchant Alliance has provided information about Fang Hao. He is located in the outpost number 032 area, north of the Human Federation. A clever little rat. The dragon paused, then continued. Any news from Bait? There's still no news from Bait. We also learned some information about this Fang Hao from the Transmigrators. Dragon Elder continued. Tell me about it. Although Fang Hao is a Transmigrators, he is quite powerful and is ranked number 1 in their rankings. The Transmigrators have only existed for a little over a year. If left to develop unchecked, they will only ever reach the level of an ordinary power. The Golden Dragon continued. Yes, so what should we do next? Dragon Elder continued to ask. A brief silence. The dragon race has kept a low profile for too long. It's time to let this continent remember the dragon race's majesty. As soon as he finished speaking, the cave, filled with gold coins, collapsed instantly. Amidst the falling golden rain, a woman emerged, dressed in a golden robe and sporting golden dragon horns. He glanced coldly down below and said, Integrate the army.